Hey everyone, it's Jack, and today I'm out at the Deepin website to take a look at Deepin 20.3, which was just released yesterday as of the time of this video. And so I'm really curious about this because I've heard that there were a lot of really good improvements made to Deepin, and I'm going to even do a side-by-side comparison of the aesthetics between Deepin, Manjaro Deepin, and Ubuntu Deepin DDE, which is the 21.10. I want to have a little more in-depth look at Deepin 20.3 itself. Here at the website, the first thing you see here is that it has better kernels. That's what's mentioned here. The stable kernel is upgraded to 5.15 with better support for Intel 12th generation processors and NTFS file systems. Nice. And better system compatibility. It also mentions that both the LTS and stable kernels can be installed and manually upgraded in Deepin. And then it goes on to say that there's enhanced management in Album. So they made some improvements there. Screen capture. In the previous version 20.2.4, screen capture released OCR in there, which was pretty nice. And now they've added the ability to support taking long scroll shots instead of several screenshots. So apparently you can take the scroll shots and kind of scroll down as you take a screenshot, and it'll support that. So that's kind of cool. I've never done that before, but I've kind of been in that situation where you have something that kind of scrolls off the page and then you got to do a separate screenshot. So that's kind of interesting. And then in their change log, they go on to mention about the DDE changes. So they've added a shortcut for the global search, which also supports searching markdown files. That's kind of cool. The global search is something that you can use to bring up, and I think the keyboard shortcut is Shift Space, if I remember right. And then you can go in there and search for files on your system and find them right away, especially if you kind of got a rough idea what the name of the file is that you're looking for. Optimize the minimum scale of the volume in the dock. Optimize if the extended mode is selected under the multi-display environment. So that kind of makes it easier to see. You can set how to display the dock on multiple displays. That's kind of nice. That's cool. And then they optimize the time and date in the control center, Bluetooth pairing prompts, and playback pause logic of multimedia files after Bluetooth disconnection. And then in the file manager, they made some changes in here. And these are all things you can really just go out to the website and just kind of peruse, because there are a lot of changes and they look pretty nice. File manager, movie, again, the screen capture, added some improvements to draw, dimension settings, to album, the input methods, where they added an advanced settings as well. Print entrance to document viewer, add music button in an empty playlist. Nice. Made improvements to voice notes, added Leon Khan and Gomuku games. Nice. And added support for 2K hard decoding of OLAND chips. And then a whole bunch of bug fixes that was scattered throughout the previous release. And then we have our link to the official download. I'm going to just go download this, and I think I'll download it from Google Drive. That's pretty fast. I like the Google Drive download, and I like that you get that option. So you have a lot of options. And in fact, here we got MediaFire, Google Drive, the OSDN itself, .NET, and then the official download here from the Deepin Releases page. So lots of choices. And of course, you could also go in here into the download and then choose download and find it there. So let's get this guy. I'm going to load it in and we'll check it out. Okay, so now here I am on my desktop, and I am actually on my live computer. I have a computer here set up with Deepin on it, the latest version, the 20.3. So I thought I would just show this to you from real hardware and skip the boring install part, because that was already done in my previous video with the 20.2.2. By the way, I have a link to that one as well in the description below, just in case you need to refer to the install part of it. So nothing really has changed there. And as you can see, The Deepin desktop is really super gorgeous, and it hasn't lost any of that at all. Now, if we go out to our terminal here, I went ahead and did a uname, and you can see that we're at the latest kernel, which is 5.15.1. When I originally did my install with the 2.2 version, I believe the updated kernel was 5.13. So this is a big step up. The 5.15, I feel like I'm pretty much cutting edge, latest and greatest. So loving that. And then over here, if we go to our software center, this is where I saw one of the biggest improvements. In my previous video, the categories over here were all in Chinese. So that was kind of irritating, but you could tell what category you were in by using the icons. However, everything was in Chinese, so it really didn't feel like you were quite in the experience for English language for your region, at least for me anyway. And then another big thing I noticed was here in your software, it's more up to date. In the 2.2 version previously, if I were to click on something like Inkscape, here I can click on Inkscape and we have version 1.1, which is really the latest stable version, which was updated in August 2021. That's great. In my previous version, if I went into Inkscape, if I remember right, it was like .9. So it was pretty old. And what I had to do to kind of get around all that was I had to go in and I installed GNOME software, GNOME-software, and I did that through the terminal using sudo apt install. Once I installed that, then I went out to the FlatHub website and followed the instructions, which is really simple. Installed Flatpak and the FlatHub plugin for GNOME software, and then I was able to kind of get to the latest stuff that way. And so I downloaded Flatpaks and installed those versions rather than from here in the software center. But now that I see this is all up to date, going back, or if I was starting over again, I probably wouldn't have to do all that, which is nice. Even the OBS Studio, which I'm running on right now, was installed as a Flatpak, because if I do a OBS Studio install search on here, you can see that I tried to install it one time in the past and the installation failed. I couldn't install it and it was an older version. Now I see that it's at 27.0.1-1. So that's all up to date. That's really great. I would say that's probably the latest stable too. What I'm using right now on this machine is the Flatpak version, which I downloaded through GNOME software. And yeah, it looks like I don't really have to be so dependent on Flatpaks anymore, even though I do like the Flatpaks. So I'll probably just kind of keep my GNOME Studio anyway, just for when I want to download Flatpaks with a GUI. It's kind of convenient. So huge improvement to the software center. Really liking that a lot. That is pretty awesome. Very happy about that. And I really like the idea that I got the latest and greatest kernel here, 5.15. That is cool. And then, of course, our menu, by default, your launcher here looks like this. And so it's kind of small and standard looking, which most people, I think, would prefer. The reason I go with the bigger one mainly is because the layout of the software in here is just kind of random. It looks like to me, it's not even alphabetical order. So I'm not really sure what's all up with that. And if you click on all categories here, then you can go in here and look at the categories. However, they don't change when you hover. So you got to actually click on the category that you want, and then you can select what you're looking for. Now, if you know where everything is, then that's great. But if you don't, then I would recommend just coming in here and using the search. Of course, search can also be activated just by hitting the super key, and then you bring up your menu here, and then you can search for whatever it is you're looking for. Now, Deepin also has a different search. It's a file search, which is located down here in your menu. And if you click on it, it brings up this search menu, and then you can search for files on your system. So if you're looking for a file, and let's say I made a video a while back about animating a button, and I don't remember the full name of that. And if I didn't know where that was, I could go in here and type animating, or maybe it was animation. Animate, I think, probably animate. Yeah, here we have animate a button in Blender. That was the graphic I used for it. And if I scroll down here a little bit, here we got make an animated subscribe button using Inkscape. That's our video. So easy to find files if you don't know where they are. And so here I can see right where it is. I can open it up and I'm good to go. I really like that. Also, the keyboard shortcut for that would be Shift Space, and that'll bring it right up. And again, for your software, just hit the super key and you'll get access right to your menu. So beautiful experience, and I really love the aesthetics in Deepin. So now by contrast, let's take a look at Manjaro and see how that kind of squares up or compares. So here I am in the Manjaro desktop now, and I just ran an update on this because this is the Manjaro install that I did in another previous video. And so it's been a while since it's been updated. So I just ran the update and did a reboot. And this is on actual hardware. This is a real machine also. So I'm going to go ahead and log in here and jump in and see how our update went. And I'm not seeing anything yet. Maybe our update didn't go that good. And again, Manjaro is based on Arch, and Arch and Deepin have a history of not working well together. So, ouch. Let me do a Control-Alt-T and get to a terminal here. And I also can't drag that down. Fascinating. That seems like something going on with the compositor or the window manager, maybe. Let me type in, let's see, I think it's Deepin WM. Let's try a replace on the window manager. Try this, Deepin WM hyphen, double hyphen replace with an ampersand. Ah, there we go. All right, we got things back. Nice. So yeah, not too cool. This is one reason I don't like using Deepin, and let me close that. On an Arch-based spin. However, that looks like that kind of solved the problem. So I might need to go and maybe make a script to manually activate that, or maybe that was just a one-time deal. Hard to say. But it seems okay now, so I'm going to minimize that window. And here we have our Manjaro welcome screen. Now, one of the things you can see different here is that we have squared edges. So we don't have our rounding anymore like we did before. And even here down on the launcher or the taskbar at the bottom, they're also squared at the edges. So we're kind of missing that rounding that we had in the other original version. In our control center, I think if we go under personalization, turn on Windows effects, let's see what happens. Looks like we can't. So if I remember right, that was something that didn't work before in my older video using the Manjaro version. For some reason, you can't use the window effects and the rounded corners here. They just don't work, which is kind of unfortunate. So you kind of give up the rounded stuff there. And so that's kind of a downer. Let's see what our kernel version is. So I'm going to bring up our terminal here. We should have a recent version of the kernel anyway, because it is Arch. So that should be one of the advantages. So if we do a uname -a, we do have, well, 5.13. Okay, that surprises me. I wasn't expecting that, especially after an update. I would have thought that probably would have updated the kernel, but there must be a reason why that it's at 5.13, and they probably have a good reason. Maybe 5.15 or 1.4 will break it completely. Hard to say. So, yes, that's kind of a comparison. And then, of course, if we go down here, and I'm using a different theme too for our icons. I'm going to minimize that. This is a theme that I kind of put in my last video. So even though we're updated here, we do have rounded corners here. That's kind of nice. And in our search, so that's good to see. And as you can see, the menu looks the same. And I can also turn the categories on and off here. And I can shrink it down to make it look like this. And it's the same kind of setup. So our menu really is the same. And that's nice to see too. So overall, you get a pretty decent experience. But you do got to kind of expect things to kind of break here and there when you're in Arch. Just because it is kind of tough, and I kind of feel for the developers trying to keep up with Deepin, because I think it is kind of rough to keep up with. However, as an end user, if you're an Arch fan, this can be kind of a pretty cool experience. And if you have a little bit of technical savvy, then that's going to help too when you get these little glitches sometimes, like after an update. And here's our software center. So the software center is set up really nice. And I don't recall exactly what it is they're using here for the software center. Maybe we can jump in DDE store. So it's an app store, I guess a GitHub fork of the DDE store, I'm guessing here. Pretty nice. I like it. So the app store, I think, is laid out really nice. And I do like that a lot. And this probably addressed a lot of the issues with the original Deepin App Store, of course, with all the Chinese characters in the different categories and all that. Probably wouldn't have been very appealing to a lot of Manjaro users in the West. So yes, that's kind of a comparison there. And again, by default, a lot of different software. Actually, pretty much the same software, I think, that you would find. And also had the HP Device Manager by default. Firefox is the default browser, whereas in the original Deepin, Firefox is not installed by default, but instead you have a browser, which I think is like a GNOME browser, probably. But browser by default here in the official bin, the search engine actually defaults to Baidu. So that's one thing you got to change right off the bat, unless you want to use Baidu, is to change the search engine. And that's just by hitting the little down arrow there. And then you got all kinds of links to different Chinese sites, which is kind of interesting, actually, I think. But overall, this is a pretty nice browser, Chrome-based. However, I went and installed Brave because I like the Brave browser. It's very secure. I went ahead and installed Brave. That was kind of the first thing I did after installing this. Now let's take a look at Ubuntu's version and see how that compares to Manjaro. Okay, and so here we are in the Deepin desktop of Ubuntu DDE. This is the remix, the 21.10 version. So we got the latest and greatest here. And as you can see, by default, this is kind of squared off, and that's because I'm in the virtual box for this one. So you can see that we do have it squared off, but that's simply because by default, we're not in effect mode. So if I go in here into personalization, unlike the Manjaro version, we do have the option to be able to switch this over, and it will let us go in. And now you can see that we have all our rounded effects here. Down in our taskbar, it's all rounded, and our window is rounded. So it looks really nice. Of course, it's going to run really slow because I'm in a virtual box. And Deepin really isn't intended to run in effect mode in a virtual box. That's kind of to be expected. Being that Ubuntu is in the Debian family, this is going to work a lot better, I think, as a desktop compared to the Manjaro, which is Arch-based. And so we're kind of crossing from Debian to Arch. And I think that's one reason there's probably more issues in the Manjaro version because of that fact there, probably in part. So yes, but we do have our beautiful aesthetics here. And if we hit our launcher, you can see that we have the mini by default here, the smaller one. And then again, just like in the official Deepin, we have our look here, the gnome look, and then we can bring up our categories and have the same beautiful effects that we did before. Really nice. Out of curiosity, let's see what we have here for a kernel. So if I do a uname-a, just to kind of see everything, A for all. Here we have the Ubuntu DDE, and we're running 5.8 for the kernel. So that's a little bit farther back than I was kind of expecting. However, after running an update, it might go as far as maybe 5.10. Hard to say, or 5. I would think, being that this is the 21.10 remix, that the kernel will probably update maybe around 5.13. I'm guessing here if you run an update. However, the little search menu is missing down here, our file search that we did earlier. So you won't find those in the spins like the Ubuntu spin and the Manjaro and so forth. That's something that's kind of native to the official install. So that's one thing that's missing down there. Another thing that's different too is I think the original Deepin desktop, or the official version, I guess I should call it, has a really nice boot up experience. I kind of like the Deepin splash screen. It just looks really nice and polished, where you don't really get that in the other spins, of course, which is understandable. I do like that polish that you have there in those. And as you can see, our Deepin terminal also has the nice rounded edges. So our aesthetics are essentially the same. And if we go down here, we have album, music. Kind of interested to see what the software store looks like here on this one. So I'll just do a search for that real quick. So here's our software center here, and let's go shopping. And so as a first time run here, it's going to download the software catalog. And I'm just kind of curious to see what they're using, if they're using a Deepin software here. So here we go. So this is what the software center looks like here in the Deepin spin. And that looks pretty nice too, actually. I'm liking that. So it is pretty consistent with our Ubuntu type software stuff. We go into About here, then it's showing that it's software. I don't know exactly what software package manager that is off the top of my head, but it kind of looks like something that you see in the other Ubuntu spins. And very nice, very high quality. I would have to say, for an Ubuntu experience, from what I've seen, and I've looked at other Deepin desktops as well in the past, probably more than a year ago, but overall the different desktops that I've looked at that had a Deepin desktop environment spin, I think the Ubuntu is the best alternative if you want to have an alternative to the official version, because Ubuntu really gives you the best aesthetics and really the closest experience to the original that you can get. So if you're looking for an alternative, my recommendation would be the Ubuntu, for sure. Ubuntu DDE. And again, I'm running the 21.10 remix, so that's a newer version. The other version that's available on the Ubuntu site is 21.04, which is the stable. So you have a couple options there to go with. So absolutely, definitely would go with this as an alternative for sure. So I'm back in the official desktop now. So that was kind of a quick comparison. I kind of wanted to give you an idea of both type spins there that you could look at. And so I hope that was helpful. And I don't think I really need to go through all the settings and all that, because that's just the same as in my previous video on 2.2. The main focus was to give you a kind of a comparison of the different ones, especially against the newer version here that we have of 20.3, which I think the improvements are really great, especially in the software center. And it is running very smooth, very zippy. And over here, you got the little weather app here. That's just something I installed as a little extra. That didn't come by default, but there is a Deepin weather app that is available. And so I just simply put that on there. And it's a pretty nice little app. I like having little weather thingies down in my taskbar anyway. But everything else here is pretty stock that came in with it. And the arrow key, of course, will close this up so you can kind of tidy up your bar if you don't want to see all that extra stuff. Then, of course, we have our power, our clock, the beautiful Deepin calendar, which is really nice. Has a lot of great features in here, and you can also schedule and do a lot of nice things in Deepin calendar. So that's a really great app there. And then our trash and notifications. And the notifications come up here in this really nice pullout. And that's something I really like too. Really gorgeous. Just a high quality desktop all the way around. It's really beautiful. And in my opinion, it just blows away Windows 11. So if you're a Windows 11 user and you're like getting frustrated with it already, this might be an alternative. But you might be saying, but I don't like that bottom bar. I can't get over that. I want it to look like an old Windows bar. Well, you can do that. Just right click down on the bar, select mode, and go to efficient mode. And now you have a more traditional taskbar down here on the bottom where it covers the full screen. And of course, you can still access your launcher. And again, you can get a little bit more of a Windows look if you just simply minimize the launcher there. And there you go. So the launcher is very easy to minimize and maximize, effortless. But personally, I like the fashion mode. So I'm going to just jump back in there again. And then you have your other options here. You can even change the location of this. So I can put this up on top if I want to. Very easy to do and access it up there. Or I could put it over on the side. If I was going to have it on the side, kind of like a Unity, then I would put it on the left-hand side. And as you can see, it moved the icons all over for me, which was nice. And so then you can access it here. So if you're kind of used to the Unity layout of having something over on the side, then that is another option that you can go with. And let's see what happens if we change that to efficient mode. So then it looks like that, which looks even better probably on the side here. And then of course you can have it over on the left side, on the right side too. Not sure why you would want it over there, but if you're somebody that would want it on the right side, that is another option. So I'm going to just put that back on the bottom. Just wanted to kind of show you that, how easy that was. And you can also have this smart hide, so it'll jump out of your way when you open a window. Personally, I just like keeping it shown, because if I'm going to open up a window anyway, like if I was going to go into my Brave browser, and I'm not sure why that went out of default, but if I wanted my Brave browser to go full screen, I could just hit F11 anyway. However, I do have that option, so we can come in here and just smart hide that, and then the browser will just cover that right up and we're good to go. And then I can just bring my mouse to the bottom and still have access to the stuff I need. So the smart hide is a really nice option to have, I think probably for most everyone. However, I do got other apps that when they maximize, it will cover this anyway. Either way, it's going to work out. And then the file manager, of course, is really gorgeous. And I'm using the dark theme here, by the way. So if you go into your settings here and go into personalization, I have the dark theme selected here. And I got the default blue here, but you can change these to any color and just really kind of spice it up, make it look really cool. So I'm kind of liking the green there. I might even change that. So yeah, let's go with green. And then you can set your transparency for your menu bar here at the bottom. So if I bring that up, if I brought it all the way up, then we could have that dark if you like a darker look, or maybe not quite so transparent. And by default, I think it was right in here somewhere about 50-50 roughly. So yes, all kinds of things you can do here. So nice options there with the personalization. I like that too. And then of course we got our update here. And of course I just updated it. And as you can see here in our system info, we're running the Community 20.3 edition. And it's called Community because Deepin is also installed by default on a lot of Huawei devices in China. And on those devices, Deepin is referred to as UOS. So UOS is kind of the OEM version of Deepin. I think it might even be something that people pay for if they want to install it onto a device. Deepin is actually the community version of that since it's open source. And that's kind of how that works. So I'm not real clear on the whole UOS versus the community version, what all the details are there, but that's kind of the deal. And then here we have even our boot menu settings, which is nice. So we can have no startup delay if we want. And then this is our boot menu here. And if we don't want a theme on that, we can just have that kind of generic looking. And of course, you got to type in your password to change that. But I kind of like having the background there. I think that's kind of cool. So, and you can also switch the theme to other things by going into there. So by logging in, I turned it off and then you would have a dark screen. And you can also have the system setup as your default menu choice. So yeah, that's all kind of cool. So there you have it, my quick comparison of the different Deepin desktops and a little sneak peek at the newest version 20.3 Deepin official spin. I give it a double thumbs up. I think the improvements are really great in this. And I forgot my so my double thumbs up. Yes. A lot of great improvements here. I really love the fact that the store in here, the menu is all improved. Everything's updated. We got 5.15 on the kernel. And a lot of things that I haven't even gone over, and I don't even remember what they all were on the website. All those other little things there, those improvements are really noteworthy. I think they make it very worthwhile as well, especially the improvements in the file manager. And apparently before there was a little bug when you were over here, if you were going to hit your backspace, and let's say you were in your music and you hit your backspace, you couldn't get to computer. And so that was kind of a little bug there that was fixed as well, among a lot of other things. So there's a lot of little improvements and additions and all the different applications. And so I would encourage you, if you're interested in what those improvements and additions are, to run out to the Deepin website and just kind of take a look at the changelog there. And there's a whole list of great improvements here. And for me, just being up to 5.15 on the kernel is just huge. So I love that all by itself. And of course, this will update. So when I installed 20.2.2, of course, I just got an update notification and I just easily updated to 20.3, no problem. So I didn't have to go and worry about having to reinstall Deepin just to get an update. So my updates come right in here and I'm just good to go. So another less thing to worry about. And with that, I got to give this a double thumbs up again because this is a fantastic OS. And I highly recommend, if you're looking for something that's gorgeous and you want the latest and greatest look and something that's even better than Windows 11, then this might be right for you. So I hope this video was helpful. And if it was, don't forget to leave that thumbs up and hit subscribe. Thanks again for watching, and we'll see you next time.